now diving a little bit deeper into some of our workforce development research. I wanted to share some insights from our hydropower workforce report, which is titled Workforce Development for U.S. Hydropower, Key Trends and Findings. This is a technical report that is available for download at the link that's on the slide. Next slide, please. So the current hydropower employment is just over 63,000 jobs. This number is from the most recent U.S. Energy and Employment report. You'll see these jobs are spread across multiple industry sectors, from utilities, construction, manufacturing, postal trade, and then businesses and professional services. There was a decline of 4,600 jobs last year. The report does note that it was a kind of a different employment year with COVID-19 impacting not only hydropower, but a wide variety of energy sectors. Next slide, please. And so NREL's hydropower workforce report really broke out this workforce by occupation and geography. And so we determined that there's actually around 23,000 of these jobs are directly related and involved with the on-site operation or upgrade of a hydropower facility. And we also then broke down those on-site jobs into different occupational categories. And you'll see the highest demand for occupations are really those skilled trades and professional workforce. And as Allison noted earlier, geography is also an important part of the hydropower industry. And so the largest hydropower employment is actually in the northwestern and the southeastern regions of the US. Next slide, please. And as part of our assessment, we also looked at the education levels needed for different occupations in the hydropower industry. So you'll see on this slide, craft workers and professional workers require specialized training, whether that's some type of trade-specific training or a bachelor's or a more higher education-based degree. And they also require many years of experience. And so you'll kind of see that bar, the bars kind of represent the years of experience that are needed. And then it's broken out by kind of the education types that industry reported that they desire for these different occupations. Next slide, please. And so we modeled 4 different scenarios for the growth of the hydropower industry, and we then modeled the number of jobs that support that capacity growth. Under the most aggressive scenario, we estimate that we would need 120,000 jobs by 2030 and 158,000 jobs in the hydropower industry by 2050. Those include both jobs for on-site workforce, so again being defined as those who are operating and upgrading hydropower facilities, but also that supply chain workforce, some more of those manufacturing roles. Next slide, please. But in addition to workforce growth, our assessment also found that the hydropower workforce is aging. The hydropower workforce is older than the average US workforce, which is shown by the on the chart on the left. And so then we took this age of the workforce and kind of ran it through the JEDI model and kind of fine-tuned some attrition modeling built in there. And we found that nearly 9,000 workers are planned to leave the workforce by 2030, and then another 13,000 total workers would leave by 2040 due to attrition. So this job loss due to attrition will add to the workforce need, especially when you factor in when the hydropower industry grows and the workforce is aging and there's attrition in the workforce, that only adds to the number of jobs that we need to be training. Next slide, please. But we also found that there's difficulty in hiring in the hydropower industry. So this we surveyed across different occupations and asked industry, what is their level of difficulty hiring different groups. This chart on the right shows that across most of the industries within most of the hydropower industry across multiple sectors, they are reporting difficulty in hiring. And so this makes our work here all the more important to really get the next generation of students excited about hiring or excited about the hydropower industry, so that we can reduce this difficulty in hiring and really fill these workforce needs that we see coming down the pipeline. And happy to answer any questions in the chat. And again, if you are using the JEDI model and have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Really interesting stuff. Next up, we are going to begin our dialogue portion of the workshop. While we are going to offer you today a group of panelists that are going to share their expertise on workforce strategies and DEI efforts, we also ask that our participants chime in with additional information, your comments, your recommendations. We will give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their efforts in DEI and STEM and their workforce development programs. Then we're going to join the Jamboard, which will put the link. I actually just started to and then stopped. Art of distraction. The link is there in the chat to join the Jamboard, where we are going to be able to share the questions that we have. So we'll obviously have those questions for the panelists, but we also are opening them up to all of you as participants to offer your answers. So don't be shy.
Yes.
First up, somebody. We make sure that everybody's on mute.
Oh, you've got one. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Now you're muted, Bree. Do you want me just to get started? I thought I saw you saying something. Okay, I'll just go ahead and start. Okay, so my name is Christina Newhouse. I've worked at Avista Utilities in Spokane, Washington for 17 years. My background is in electrical engineering, and I'm a licensed professional engineer in Washington State. The first half of my career, I worked as a controls engineer in generation, where I did automation, monitoring, physical security, and CIP compliance. The second half of my career, I worked as the controls engineering manager, and I also managed Avista's engineering development program for engineers that are either starting or early in their utility career. And then where I am today, so you see in my title, last year I took a one-year development opportunity in HR, so trying something much different than engineering, and I'm working as Avista's first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager. So that's a little bit about me. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what Avista is doing around DEI and other efforts. At Avista, we're excited about recently developing our first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion strategic plan. And in that plan, we are focused on creating awareness around what diversity, equity, and inclusion are and why they are important. We have found that we have the full spectrum from our employees of employees that don't understand quite why we're doing diversity, equity, and inclusion because they think everything is great as it is. And then we have employees who feel that it's about time and we should do this work faster. So spreading awareness around where we're at and why it's important. And so in doing that, we've shared with employees how our goals and our aspirations and our strategies are aligning with our current state and how we hope to reflect the communities that we serve, and we want to create a more belonging culture at Avista. And so that's kind of around our strategic plan. And then we're also new to employee resource groups, and we actually launched our first employee resource group in 2020 that's called Women of Avista. It's focused on creating a more supportive culture for women, and it consists of 40 active members. And over the last year, they've been very active in rolling out a company-wide book club to create awareness around barriers and support for women and leaders, not just women. We read a lot of Brene Brown books, but that's open company-wide for all employees. Also, the employee resource group is open to all men and women at Avista. And they've also sponsored and organized our first company-wide mentoring program that is focused on supporting women. So every pair of mentor-mentee pair has a woman in that pairing. And then we look forward to a lot more additional employee resource groups to come later this year. We hope to launch an employee resource group that'll be focused on diversity awareness, and then also one in the future that'll be focused on veteran employees or employees that are veterans. Okay, so then I also have here inclusion and diversity in the craft. So as we look at the workforce demographics of our employees in the trades, we have room to improve to better reflect the communities we serve. And so a committee was spun up that focused on diversity in the crafts last year, and shortly after they were figuring out what they could do to increase diversity, after some really great discussion, came to the conclusion that we really need another committee to work in parallel that's focused on creating a more inclusive culture in the crafts. And so the second committee, it just launched this summer, and I'm really excited about the possibilities that that committee can focus on. There's talk about another possible mentorship program that'll focus on specifically on women in the trades. And so lots of great things to hopefully come from those two committees as we focus on our trade and workforce. And then for our engineer workforce, we have two programs, a student engineering development program, and then our engineering development program. So I'll speak to the student program first. So it consists of 16 students that start every summer, and sometimes they work through the school year. It just depends on their capacity as students and then the workload that the team that they're assigned. But they do valuable work on various engineering teams throughout the company. The program includes hydro generation tours. They also receive presentations from various engineering teams throughout the company. And then they also do a group project with the Girl Scouts. So lots of great things in that program. And for that program, we've been intentional about recruiting more females into our student program. And so we've actually seen quite a bit of success by partnering with the Society of Women Engineer chapters or Women in Science and Engineering chapters at universities, whenever possible, if they have those organizations. And we've taken food if we're able to meet in person, and we host a panel discussion open to all students in the College of Engineering at these universities, but we're just partnering with these chapters that are supporting women in engineering. But we partner with them to bring a panel of engineers from Avista to talk about what it's like to be an engineer at Avista. And so from that, we've actually seen quite a few more female applicants apply for our programs. And so that's great to have a more diverse application or a pool within our application process. And we also put out an effort to connect with female engineering students or existing female engineers. If one were to reach out and they want to learn more about opportunities at Avista, we make sure to introduce them to individuals and really help them understand what opportunities we have. And then for the engineering development program, that it's for engineers, like I mentioned, that are either just starting their career in the utility or they're early on in their career. And the program is a 2-year program that's made up of 6-month engineering rotations. The program provides a mentor for all the engineers in the program. And then we have monthly learning sessions for from various teams throughout the entire company to help these new engineers learn more about the utility industry. And our student program has been a great feeder pool for our entry engineering program. Last year, I have that we also have another program that's called Energy Pathways, and this is a 1-month program for high school juniors and seniors, and it provides an opportunity for students to discover possible careers in the energy industry. The students are exposed to various technical and skilled trade careers that and they speak with the experts in those fields. And they're actually also given hands-on activities, including designing, planning, and performing actual utility tasks. And I think we've had that program. We did that maybe 1 or 2 years, and then we could not have that in 2020 due to COVID. But we are looking at efforts to expand that program into a version 2.0 that'll hopefully provide more opportunities. So that's a little bit about what we do at Avista.
Very cool. Thank you, Christina. Sounds
Yeah.
like you guys are busy.
Yes.
Next up, we have Diane McMaster with Emerson.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to join in your discussion today. I found a lot of different things very interesting, so I've been writing lots of notes as we go along. My name is Diane McMaster. I do represent Emerson, and the division I work for is actually called Power and Water Solutions. And so we work in the industry, in the power side, and the water, wastewater side, doing control systems and mechanical updates and all kinds of different things associated with energy. I'm also happy to talk today, and I was happy to hear Christina talk about this too, is because we also have kind of a lot of diversity programs going on, and I'm very proud to say that I'm one of the regional leads of our Emerson Women in STEM program, where we are trying to reach out not only internally to grow people, but externally so that we can grow different disciplines and provide different opportunities for people to see what type of opportunities are going to be out there. If you can go to the next slide, please. So Emerson, in general, a lot of people don't know who we are at all. We're a really large company made up of a lot of different companies and a lot of different things, but we do a lot of engineering, a lot of software, a lot of manufacturing. We have two distinct business type of things that are out there, the ones that are automation solution, which is the division that I work for, and the ones that are called commercial and residential, which may be things that you actually have in your house. But across all of Emerson, that's one of the big things we're trying to do is make an impact on people and provide some ways of reaching out and not only, like I said before, reaching out internally, but reaching out externally so that we can develop folks to support the industries that are out there. Next slide, please. We have a lot of causes that we take a look at, and you'll see kind of the 5 big ones that are out there, you know, making sure that we're committed to doing sustainable things for the planet, advancing health and safety of everybody that's out there, being champions of things, trying to solve problems that are complex. And probably the two that relate to the topics that we have today are really the focus on inclusion and focus on the future, which is promoting a lot of the STEM activities that are out there. And there's a lot of information on our website, on our Emerson website, talking about some of the different STEM activities and things that are available out there. If you can go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about kind of inclusion and STEM at the same time. I was pleased to hear Christina talk about her employee resource groups that they have at her site. We have a lot of employee resource groups, and that's something that's been going on for a while. I mentioned that I'm part of the Women in STEM group, which actually started out in probably about 2013. So it's been out there quite a while, and it's not only in the US, but it's worldwide. So it kind of grew from something small to something larger, so that we can have a way of talking to folks, bringing them together, growing talent, and then working with other people. We also have the other ones that you'll see on there as well, the Blacks Reinforcing Diversity, the LGBTQ, SOMOS, which is our Hispanics and Latin Americas, and a veterans group. So what we've tried to do is grow all of those opportunities out there so that everybody feels comfortable in the workspace, and to provide training and growth opportunities and a level of comfort that when you come in, you'll be able to feel comfortable about being a part of something there or learning about it, because all of these groups are open to other people. So if you're not focusing or representative in one of those areas, that doesn't mean you can't learn and be an ally in any of those different groups that we have in there. And then, you know, we've gotten recognized as a best place for work for some of these different activities that we have. We also do a lot of training. You'll see some stuff on the left-hand panel there that talk about some of the diversity and awareness and unconscious bias training that we do, in addition to all the other training that we do as part of our normal wellness and growth of our employees. If you can go to the next slide. So kind of how some of this reaches out and maybe where this fits in a little bit of what we've been talking about today is we take a lot of those things and reach into the community and try to spread that information and knowledge. You know, you all have talked about the aging workforce, and that's something that we see across all the different industries that are out there. And it doesn't matter if you're in power or if you're in water, if you're in anything that's technical out there, we're seeing a lot of that aging workforce. And one of the things, or one of the many ways that we've heard you all talk about today, is really reaching into the communities and being able to spread information, spread knowledge. Some of the photos that you'll see on there, Emerson has a history and continues to have a history of reaching into the community and working with different groups to try to spread that knowledge. So the kind of the big picture that you see in the background there is one of the programs that I'm really involved with, which is the Penn State New Kensington COMETS program. And it's a way of reaching into the community around the Penn State New Kensington area. And since about 2012, this program's been existing there to catch primarily middle school girls, but it's actually open to everybody. And we invite folks from industry to come in and talk and share experiences with them. Our group has done that, but we've had it from a lot of different areas around. And one of the things that I know has been part of the conversation today is when you get information in front of folks this young, you know, again, they're 6th to 8th graders, and you show them what's out there, that sometimes turns the light bulb on for them to understand and expose themselves to other industries or other things they didn't know about. And that's a really big focus of the program, is really trying to get in front of them at a younger age level to make that more visible so there might be an interest. We do things at our office, the We Love STEM Days, to try to just promote STEM in general, of course. And then you'll see some pictures from some university engagements that we've done. So we also work deeply with the Society of Women Engineers on a lot of different things, as well as a lot of other platforms that are out there. But what that allows us to do is also get us into the universities and talking to them and doing some of the internships and the co-ops that you all have been talking about as well. We have been very lucky that with several of the universities that we work with closely, we've been able to kind of jump that knowledge of training, or have somebody maybe figure out that they're really interested in hydro or another activity, or really not, you know, and to try to catch them at a level where they can see what that future looks like by doing some of the co-ops and some of the internships. Some of those, the timing of some of those, and I know Christina talked about it too, but some of those are based on how the universities run them. And so we kind of try to work within the university system to offer those opportunities. But you know, those types of opportunities really seem to grow interest and grow knowledge, as well as hearing about it at that level. And then, you know, at our normal hiring level, when we bring people in, that's one of the things that we focus on as well. Is, you know, you have an education, you know, in mechanical, electrical, you know, some type of a discipline that we're looking to hire, but then we really want to reach in and make sure that we kind of guide you and mentor you as you go along, because in the beginning it's really hard. As some of the folks that have spoken before me, I think you don't know what you don't know until you get in there and you start working. And then once you are working on it hands-on, whether through a co-op, an internship, or your first job, you kind of pick up the skills that you're missing, or at least we hope you do.
Thank you, Diane. I was just nodding the whole time. I agree with almost everything you said. Almost, no, just the whole thing. Very cool program. Sorry about that. Next up, we have Bev Richardson, who is going to talk to us about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Bev, do you want to take over?
Yes, hi. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're at. And thank you so much for inviting me here today to speak with you in your STEM for Hydropower Dialogue workshop. And I want to let you know, here at AECOM, we support the Hydropower Foundation. And Wayne Pietz is the VP for Hydropower Integrated Delivery in our water business line, and I support him from an HR standpoint. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about equity, diversity, and inclusion at AECOM. So can we go to the next slide, please? So here is just our global pledge and our beliefs that we believe that infrastructure provides opportunity for everyone. and that we are stronger and we're better by the collective voices that we bring to AECOM. And so we believe that equity, diversity, and inclusion makes us better anticipate our clients' needs. And we also believe that together we're better than we are as one. So we believe in inclusion and belonging. And we're committed to ED&I, and we build diverse teams, and we do that through a multiple different avenues. But one is that we go out to our universities. We go out to HBCUs, historical Black colleges and universities, and we go out to our minority serving institutions. We also have internships, and we believe that we provide opportunities in our water business line to have great opportunities for our interns to come in, learn a lot during the summer, and we hire them on as hires. So this year we had 260 interns here at AECOM. So I think I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Bev Richardson, and I am the ED&I, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Lead for the Americas at AECOM. And AECOM is an engineering infrastructure company. And we can go on to the next slide, please. And so as I talked about before, I talked about equity, diversity, and inclusion is core to our vision. What I just showed you was our global pledge to ED&I. We believe in equity, that we enable equal access to opportunities for all. We know that people come to us with different backgrounds, different experiences, different educations, different opportunities. But we at AECOM provide everyone with the same level of opportunity to grow and excel in their careers. We believe that we bring a multitude of voices and perspectives, and we strive to make sure that we are as unique as the communities in which we serve. So for example, when we have project teams, we want our project teams to look like the community in which we serve. So we build iconic buildings, and we build bridges, and we build, we have our transportation business, we have our water business line, we have our environment business line, we have energy, power, water. We do all of that at AECOM, and we want to make sure that we have a diversity of ideas and different perspectives when we hire. So we think about equity, diversity, and inclusion, and when we bring those all together, we believe that we thrive better as a company. We want to ensure that every voice is heard, every voice is important. And so can you go to the next slide, please? So this is our 4 pillars. It's our global pillars of how we focus our equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy. It's core to our vision. Our CEO, Troy Rudd, as well as our president, Laura Poloni, speak about where we are in terms of ED&I at every opportunity when they communicate. So we are committed to ensuring that the voices of our people are included and heard, and that this is a place where diverse talent can thrive. We focus on our people. So we attract, retain, and develop our talent from different backgrounds and different ways of thinking. We have a culture that is inclusive and engaging of all of our differences, right? And capabilities. We deliver innovative solutions that prioritize our diversity and inclusion. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about what does this all mean from an America standpoint. But we leverage our diversity of our people with the communities in which we serve in our industry. So for example, we're not going to start a water project in Detroit, Michigan with a team that doesn't look like Detroit, our clients in Detroit, Michigan, for example. That's just one example. But I want to talk to you a little bit about how we take our strategy and execute on our strategy. So we have a global strategy for ED&I. And from that, in the Americas, which I lead, we develop an America strategy. So we focus on those 4 pillars that I talked about, and we look at what's important in the Americas. We have an America Steering Committee that's made up of our 5 different regions and businesses and HR professionals, as well as our ED&I leaders. And we also have what we call ED&I champions. That's a champion or more, 1 or 2 in each office, and they are there to execute on our strategy. So the America Steering Committee develops a strategy, and our champions execute on it. And then we also have ED&I regional committees that focus on ED&I within their local regions. We also have goals for improving our gender diversity in FY21 and in FY22. So we're in a fiscal year. We go from October 1st to September 30th. That's our fiscal year. So we're coming up on the end of our first fiscal year. And in FY22, we will have non-gender goals for underrepresented groups in addition to our gender goals. We focus on diversity recruiting, and we do that through our diversity recruiting programs. We also have a retention program where we're working to retain our high-performing, diverse women and underrepresented groups, peoples within our organization. We focus on those groups for our succession planning, and when we conduct talent reviews within our organizations, we want to make sure that we're growing and developing the careers of our diverse employees. We focus on professional development. We also have mentoring programs. We have a formal mentoring program as well as a reverse mentoring program, and that's pretty unique. A reverse mentoring program, the mentee is the early career within the first 5 years of your career, 1 to 5 years, is the mentor, and the mentee is the executive. So we have that program going as well as sponsorship programs. We have, for the first time in FY21, we've rolled out employee resource groups. And we have an LGBTQ plus employee resource group, a Black employee resource group, women's, Asians, Hispanics, and Indigenous peoples. So we have 6 employee resource groups. And next year, we're rolling out 3 additional, which will be the early career professionals, veterans, and individuals with disabilities. So we will round our employee resource groups out with 9 employee resource groups. Each of our employee resource groups focuses on careers, commerce, culture, and community. That we call them the 4 C's. And they also, focus on their particular demographic, and they have allies. Allyship is most important for employee resource groups because if you want to make change happen in a culture, you need to have allies. We celebrate cultural awareness events, and this year, for the first time, we've focused on 13 different cultural awareness events based on the calendar year. So when there's a month that's celebrating a cultural event, like Hispanic Month from September 15th to October 15th, or Black History Month in February, whenever there's a cultural event, we have cultural awareness across the Americas. And we put on all types of events to help employees understand that particular culture. We do a lot in STEM programs throughout the Americas and K-12 outreach. So if you look at our ED&I homepage, you'll always find a K-12 outreach program that we're highlighting or spotlighting, or a STEM program. We do a lot of STEM programming within our water business line within the West region, and that's where Wayne sits, in the West region. Our West region makes up about half of the Americas. We had unconscious bias training. saw that the previous speaker spoke to that, but unconscious bias training is a required training for the first time this year, and it's due to be completed by all employees in the Americas, I'm sorry, all employees globally by July 30th. And we do a lot of internal, external networking. We conduct real talks like this, like panel discussions. Some of those panel discussions are on difficult topics for employees, and we want to make sure that employees' voices are heard. We do a lot in community engagement and much, much more, but I am at this time going to turn it over, turn the call back over. One thing I wanted to say before is that we do a lot of work with different professional organizations. And so I wanted to share that I wanted to share that our company, AECOM, is a corporate member or partner in the directors circle for our Hydropower Foundation. So we are a member and we support this organization. We think it's a great opportunity to have direct access to some of the brightest, talented students that are interested in obtaining a career in hydropower. We have opportunities here at AECOM. And it really demonstrates our commitment to the next generation of hydro professionals. I heard everyone talk about it's a aging profession. But we really like the opportunity to partner and to be able to post our job postings on the foundation. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Bev. Very awesome information. We're not quite ready for the dialogue series, although we could go ahead and plug the Hydropower Collegiate Competition workshop that's coming up next. That'll be on August 12th. So if you want to write that on your calendars while you're, taking a look at it. Now we are going to go into the Jamboard link so that we can kind of talk about some of the questions that we came up with prior to the workshop, but we also want to give you all an opportunity to ask any of our panelists questions as well. So feel free to either put them in the chat or just raise your hand and we'll make sure that we call on you. But maybe I'll just start there. Let's start with about a few minutes to does anybody have any initial questions for any of our panelists? Okay, well, if you think of any, they're here, so let us know. Meanwhile, you can either get into the Jamboard yourself through the link, or you can take a look at the screen. Obviously, it's right here, so we'll keep track of it that way. But the first question is, what steps is your company taking to ensure DEI is a priority for the company's culture? We heard a lot. I think it's great, all these companies, what you guys are doing for this, because it is obviously a really important topic. So I'm excited to hear all the different things. And I think it's things that we could, just to be able to transfer that over to the hydro industry or any other industry, just to be able to take notes of what other people are doing and find out, is it working? That's my question. Is it working? Have you seen people feel more comfortable? I will ask the panelists that. I'll just throw that out there. Is it working? Do you see more of a diverse workforce from the programs that you guys are running?
So this is Bev. I'll speak up and say that, we really put a lot of emphasis around ED&I. We've always had a culture of ED&I. But after the death of George Floyd last year, that rang across the globe, we put a lot more emphasis around it. And we are listening to our employees. They have a lot to say, and we want them to feel like they belong. So we have done a lot of allowing opportunities for employees' voices to be heard, both at a broad level, like panel discussions like this, or within their work teams. Things like we start every meeting with either a safety moment or an ED&I moment, because we are a culture of both, right? And so the safety moment is all about safety and the work that we do. And ED&I is all about educating our employees on the different cultures. So I think we're doing more than we've ever done. I've been with the company for 5 years, and this last year I can see the change in our culture. Although change happens slowly, I do see that people are very comfortable with speaking up and speaking out.
I think that's so important, because I think it's really easy to just kind of tuck those feelings down and not make any kind of scene, or you don't want to say anything, you don't want to ruffle feathers. And so I think it's great that people are speaking up and feeling comfortable to do so. All right, so there are lots of answers already. What steps is your company taking to ensure DEI is a priority for your company's culture and employee resource groups? That's definitely been number one, I would say, in our conversations already. And I think that's, I don't know, you can see that happen even with other organizations. Even churches use it. You use small groups to get connected. There's other areas, within schools. You get into these smaller committees. So I do think that we're onto something with those employee resource groups. Working to integrate DEI metrics into program and staff performance evaluation, and merging the DEI action plan into the overall organizational framework, part of the organizational DNA. That is perfect. Love that. DEI committee of 15 plus cross-organizational employees, diverse roles and tenure, union and non-union, to address top 3 issues identified through an assessment by a professional consultant, and share articles and updates in weekly internal publications. Very cool. Diverse hiring panels. At the university, the DEI has been implemented for decades at all levels. That's very good to know. And I do think, overall, I would say that a lot of people, a lot of organizations have already been doing this. It's just that we're starting the conversation to be more aware of what companies have in place. So I do want to acknowledge that it's not a brand new thing. DOE is a good example of excellent DEI implementation from the top, Energy Secretary, to the bottom. Many important positions are filled with competent personnel. Very good. Our IDE efforts continue to mature. And it doesn't happen overnight. You're right, Bev. It takes a lot of time. Very good. Does anybody have any other thoughts to add before we move to the next question?
Maybe one thing I'll speak to, Bree, is that
of course.
So when we talk about our goals and aspirations, and that involves some aspirations around our gender and racially diverse employees, we're really sensitive to employees feeling like we're trying to meet a quota. And so we make sure and say it many times that it's not about hiring unqualified candidates for positions, but that we really want to put an effort out to increase our pipelines to be more diverse. So to be intentional about who we're reaching out to when we post positions, that we're not just waiting for people to gravitate towards our website, that we're actually reaching out to diverse organizations to have a more diverse pipeline. And so it's all about having more diverse applicants apply for our positions so that we have more qualified diverse applicants to choose from. But having to say that over and over again for our employees to understand. And so we have a lot of efforts right now on our recruiting teams to find out where can we increase our diversity in our pipeline. So we're building that pipeline.
That's tremendous. I think it's delicate, right? Like, to make sure that you're communicating it just right. But I think it's extremely important. So I'm glad you're doing that. Somebody added something else. Let me see. We have a trained DEI on every interview panel to keep biases out of the process.
I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah.
So we do have at AECOM a diversity hiring program, which we train our hiring managers so that they do focus on asking every candidate the same question. We're piloting a program called the Rooney Rule, and I think those who enjoy football know what the Rooney Rule is. But because it was based on originally implemented by Dan Rooney, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the rule was there to was required to hire greater or diversity in their hiring of their coaches. And so we've implemented the Rooney Rule, and the purpose is to increase opportunities for qualified and traditionally underrepresented groups like women, the LGBTQ plus racial and ethnic minorities, and peoples with disabilities within our organization by ensuring that at least one woman and one member of a traditionally underrepresented group be considered in the slate of candidates for all open positions before the decision is made. And where possible, a diverse interview panel is involved in the selection of the final candidate for the open position. I'll go back to you, Bree. You're on mute. How many times have we said that this year?
I need it on my forehead. You're on mute. There are a couple questions in the chat that just came up, so I just want to address those real quick. How does DEI influence engineering professional decision making?
How does it?
It says, how does DEI influence engineering and professional decision making?
Well, I think
like you kind of covered a little bit of that just now. But
I did. Well, just in general, I think without diversity, decision making is in a vacuum based on what you're comfortable with and based on what you know. We try to change that narrative by including everyone and making sure every voice is heard. And so it's not just something we're saying, it's something that we mean, right? So immediately after this, I have a training class, and I'm going to be training some facilitators. And one of the things I want to make sure that they understand is that if you're not hearing from someone, call on them. Because we want to know, we want their input in any decisions that we make or any, so you don't assume quiet is agreement, right? And so at our company, we really focus on inclusion. And that to me answers that question. Yeah, we want everyone's voice to be heard in decision making, because without that, we would be very linear. Okay.
Also, I think just in general that DEI increases innovation. That having a diverse organization will add to more innovation. So there's a lot of research around all the improvements that it can have on a business, and innovation is one of them. So I think that ties to engineering decision making.
Absolutely. Diane, anything to add?
No, I agree with all the things that you're saying out there. I think, getting out there and listening and having a more diverse workforce out there is really important. And I think, the Rooney Rule, which I laugh because of course I'm in Pittsburgh, so I recognize that right away. But, really taking a look at that and spreading the information out. So it is, you get a larger pool of people. And I think really getting in, as some of you have mentioned before, at the university level early on, so that you're known, and you're known as somebody who's going to be looking at those things, let alone in, the bigger hiring pool. But I think sometimes we can make a bigger impact at the university level, just because we're kind of catching those folks a little bit earlier so that we can show them that we are part of a bigger organization that values those things and put money behind it. Because if there's no money behind it, then that's really not going to make it. That's just going to be a piece of paper. And putting the money behind it to make sure that you have those activities, and whether that's outreach or whether that's internal, or whether that's trainings, really makes a big difference on that.
Absolutely. All right. I think we should move on to the next question. There are already answers. You guys are overachievers. When you are hiring, what skills or knowledge are most lacking or difficult to find, specifically with recent graduates filling entry-level positions? And a couple of our answers are tech knowledge, ability to see the larger picture as it relates to the job they're performing, and SMEs with training, curriculum development, and delivery experience or education.
Well, I'll take just a second on that, if you don't mind. From talking to our folks that, I'm not an HR person, but from talking to our folks that, are in this all the time, what they often note is if it's somebody that's a recent graduate, they're always going to be missing something unless they've co-opted or had the experience with you. And we take that as an opportunity of, if you're mechanical and need to know electrical or vice versa, or, whatever the cross skill set is to try to make sure that we're filling that gap and do a lot of hands-on and a lot of mentoring with that person so that they can grow, so they know somebody they can ask a question to. And I know a couple of our presenters have talked to that as well, but, we really want them to see that. And also a lot of it is hands-on, where you need to be maybe in the field or at the customer site to see some of those things so that you can put into practice what you've been hearing about theory-wise. So we try to do a lot of those types of things to make sure that we're growing that, as well as we have, some schooling that's for customers of ours as well as internal to kind of build those things that are specific to the hydro market.
Very good. Does anybody else have anything to add? You can put it on the Jamboard or you can raise your hand. And there are a lot of you, and I know that some of you have an opinion about this.
I can speak to for our student engineers.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult when you have 200 student applications and they just attach their resume. So we put a lot of emphasis on their cover letter and encourage them to provide a meaningful cover letter on, their actual passions and their interests and why they want to work in the utility beyond just the courses that they took. And even though we say, please attach your cover letter, we see few and few cover letters these days. And it's really hard in those entry positions to stand out with a resume alone at times. So.
Agreed. I think it's harder and harder because I remember, you could just call somebody and you could say, hey, I'm interested in this job, and like that was a thing, and you just don't do that anymore. I got an internship by bringing a coffee to the guy I was meeting with. He was like the head manager. And I was like, okay, I'm going to set myself apart and get this internship. And it wasn't a paid internship. This was a lot of effort for my free work. But yeah, I got him coffee and I got the internship. But you can't do that anymore. It's like it all has to go through a scanning process and all of that. So that's a really good point. Cover letters, you got to be able to show how you stand out. We have a few other answers on our board. Knowledge is one thing, but attitude, resilience, ability to work within a team are also important. And that's, yes, it is. You can't work in a team, that's really tough. For students to even know how to translate their skills to the hydro industry, avoid that I'm not going to apply because I don't know anything about hydropower. That is a good point too. That could be, that could definitely deter somebody. trade positions, communication, interpersonal skills, work ethic, and time management. So I want to kind of touch on that. I like the laughing. I just think, so when students are getting their degrees, so you're an engineering student, let's say, I know personally, I'm married to an engineer. He has excellent communication skills, but he didn't learn that in college. He just somehow is a good communicator, both verbally and through all of he does a lot of technical writing. So I guess I'm wondering, is there something else that we should be doing in order to make sure that these students, in STEM are also being taught, work ethic and communication skills and time management? Maybe even just an adulting class could be helpful, but some of those types of skills, I'm not sure if those are always focused on. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
So one of the surveys that I looked at, was talking about the difference between the folks that are retiring and the skill sets of the folks that were coming on board. And, they're dramatically different. I mean, you still need people who are going to learn how to make the stuff work that's there because it hasn't retired out or it hasn't been replaced. But, they also want to take in some of maybe the non-personal skills, the typing and the texting and the things that maybe folks that are more senior in the industry are in there. And one of the things, that I think people can do, I think we do a lot more training with our younger people, whether that's in, elementary through high school and through college, where they do present and they really do try to talk more and encourage a lot of that. But, I think that's something that even kind of working on the other side of when you're mentoring with somebody that's a little bit more senior, maybe some of those skills can really come out then of what's expected and how this is going to go. But then I was also liking what we were talking about before is that Beverly said that, when you have that reverse mentoring almost where we're trying to take some of those young people who have a different skill set than those of us who are more senior and understand how to bridge that gap, because sometimes it can be two different languages there. And, it's not only the communications, but what's expected and then maybe understanding the differences between them.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
I want to jump in and just say that
Yeah.
at AECOM, we really try to help our hiring managers to think, what are the skills that are required for this job? And what are the skills that you can focus on developing, right? Because you're not going to always find everything in every candidate. And then when we start thinking about improving our diversity hiring, we want to hire qualified people. So what are those qualifiers that you have to have, those must-haves, and then what are you willing to develop? And and then we work on developing, and we have what we call AECOM University. We set them up with a mentor or a sponsor for development. But someone, I think, who was just speaking, for the first time in our history, we have 4 to 5 generations at work. And the way people think and make decisions and what's important to them and how they communicate is all very different. And so we have to recognize that as a company and be able to help educate leaders on how to interact with people in different generations. Yeah.
Absolutely. There should be a class for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Generation work.
We have that's right. We have a question in the chat, and he makes a good point. Different resources like the Google search or Monster give conflicting recommendations regarding the cover letters and resumes. How do you know which practice to follow, or like which, your reviewer that you're sending the resume into, how do you know what they're going to prefer?
Well, I would guess if they ask for a cover letter, you should provide a cover letter. We ask for a cover letter and we find that we still don't get them. And we still review those applications, but it's at a disadvantage compared to those that do. So it's unfortunate about the conflicting messaging. it might seem a little behind the times to require the cover letter, but there really hasn't been a replacement to be on the resume if you're just going to list the classes that you took. And it's great if students, they can stand out if they had an internship, but not all students have internships. So then how do you evaluate those that don't have experience but have the education?
That's right, absolutely. We've got a few more answers, and I'm going to just read a couple of them, and then we can move to the next question because we are running out of time. What skills do those to who an intern, or apprentice is assigned to give guidance and feedback other than the technical educational? Your greatest producer is not always the best at sharing information, skills, and experiences. And an internship is a good path to know each other, the employer versus the employee, and almost a good indication of future retention and promotion, which I fully agree with. And there is a competition between financial interests, profits versus a good policy on DEI. Most often CEOs concerns only about the stock valuation. It will be good if COE's bonus tied to DEI success.
Well said.
Interdisciplinary teamwork. All right, thank you guys for participating. This is great. Let us move to the next question. How do we reach students with diverse backgrounds? We have a few answers already, but feel free to chime in if you want to answer that. Using rural dams, infrastructure, start at the high schools with informative and fun field trips, fund these sites with outreach funding, paid opportunities for students where they also get credit at school. And we have supported local Denver area middle and high school STEM programs by hosting a training learning opportunity to the industry. Would be interested in seeing how we could take this on the road. It's a good idea.
I will say, if one of the things again that I've been involved with is some of the outreach at a younger level, and the program that I volunteer with, and that is one of the ones that Emerson sponsors. They really try to get into the communities where it's a little bit more diverse, or where some of the folks maybe haven't heard of any of this. And one of the things that I've seen the Penn State New Ken folks do is not only educate the students, but educate the parents, because sometimes we don't know what's out there, or we don't know what the opportunities are. And they usually spend one of the meetings kind of, reviewing some of those things with one of the experts, talking about different areas and information and how things can go, so that you all learn a little bit more about it. And, sometimes I think we focus maybe on the students, but maybe parents, family members, grandparents, whoever, just to kind of get that information out there. And again, from listening to you all today, there's an awful lot of information on your sites if we just reach out into it and sort of try to spread that out.
Absolutely. Share the portal. Share it everywhere. Okay, well, we have just a few more minutes. So let's move to the next question real quick and see if we can't get to that one before we hit our time limit here. How can we improve information sharing to address education research and workforce needs between academia, trades, and professional services and the private sector? So we have the portal. How do we make sure that it's in the right hands, and make sure that it's getting shared, or are there other, is there other information we need to be sharing as well? And how do we improve that? Funding for field trips. I like the circle that's happening around high schools. Need outreach from rural dams to local high schools as field trips to reach a much wider selection of young adults. I agree with that. Field trips are great. Job shadowing with mini certificates that can compile into a reward or status that will show engagement in the industry. And we provide job shadowing opportunities for high school students, short stints. Awesome. I've been interested in developing a veterans re-education program, could perhaps easily and happy to translate to any group. Problem is, who would pay for it? That is true. And high school internships or mini courses would be helpful. Collective impact partnerships, cross-industry, K through 12 and post-secondary education and trades, pre-apprenticeship programs to build synergy across lots of great programs that may or may not be connected. That's perfect. I love that. Okay. This is awesome. Thank you, guys. Hey, listen, so I know that we're totally short on time, but we have a few more questions within the Jamboard. You all clearly have access to it. If you don't mind taking a few more minutes, just put a few more of your thoughts within the Jamboard to answer a few more of these questions, because I do want to be cognizant of your time, because we really appreciate everybody's participation today. And we want you to come back. So we don't want you to be like, oh, they always go like 30 minutes over. So if you'll go into the Jamboard and just throw in a few comments, we appreciate that. And again, save the date for the next STEM Dialogue workshop. It will be on the Hydropower Collegiate Competition. We will be meeting with academia and industry to really investigate the need for a hydropower collegiate competition. So make sure that's on your calendar for August 12th. That will be from 3 to 5 Mountain Time. So make sure that's on your calendar. And I think that's it. So thank you very much for coming. And if anybody has any last minute questions, definitely put them in the chat. I don't mind staying on for a few minutes. And then also we will send out the slide deck, so you'll have access to that, and we will have the recording on our website at hydropowerfoundation.org. Thanks, everybody.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I'm new to this group, and actually somebody had forwarded your email to me so that I could sign up. Is there a list I can join? I'm a resource within Washington State. We've had some DOE grants in the past, the Center of Excellence for Clean Energy, and we connect industry, labor, and education, especially in the community technical colleges. How do I connect with you so that I can see more of these type of events that are coming up?
Absolutely. And let me just ask you, Monica, are you the new executive director over there, or?
I am indeed.
Okay, because we were connected before you. We were connected with Barbara Hens-Turner.
Right.
And she was on our advisory committee for this project for a little while. But I know she's been like dabbling with retirement and then not quite. I don't know. Right. Anyway, so I'm glad you joined, Monica, because I was wondering. I was like, I need to meet the new Barbara. So thank you for joining. I can certainly add you to our distribution list so that we can send you information on upcoming workshops and Hydropower Foundation events and anything NREL or DOE related. We can forward that on to you. Are you still there? You're frozen. I think she might be frozen here. So I will email her. Okay, I will jump to you, Sharon. You had a question?
Hey, yeah, hi Bree. We met probably a few months ago now. So I've been working at U of T, University of Toronto, to build my hydropower focused master's courses.
Awesome.
So we've got, you know, 2 new courses starting this year, 1 starting in September. And it just occurred to me through this conversation that I'm taking a very different approach to the problem. And I think it might be an interesting conversation for a future workshop. So I just wanted to get your perspective, or to get a sense of if you guys would be open to having a discussion about our little project and how we're going about it.
That's a really good point. Actually, what I would probably do is, if you can send me some information about your project,
Sure.
and what you're working on, then I can take it back to our team and we can kind of review some ideas about how maybe, if we incorporate it into a workshop, or, we've got a hydro think tank competition coming up. We also have the potential for the hydropower collegiate competition. So sometimes we need other ideas for what those projects entail. So, so just off the cuff, I would say, if you can send me some information, then I'd be able to share it with our team.
Yeah, for sure.
What we can do with it. If there's another workshop that could be held around it, I'm sure we'd be happy to do that.
Sure. Yeah, just to give you a bit of an idea is, like, some of the issues that came up today were around, education and newcomers into the industry not really having a sense of the big picture. And I think that's something that really resonates with me from my own personal experience as well. So, and this is a bigger issue throughout engineering education. So the approach I'm trying to take is to center, the story of hydropower around like a complex systems idea. So, and also to encourage people to become more comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty, and a lot of the conflicting interests around hydropower, and to really be comfortable with those sorts of discussions. I think it's an important issue, especially kind of when we're thinking about diversity and inclusion. Like, how do we make sure that the people who are designing our power stations are sensitive to the issues that are happening on the ground, and the many different values and perspectives. So at the moment, it's like crunch time right now for me to develop all this. But I'd be really interested, as it matures over the fall, to share with you guys how it's going, and to get your sense of, are there things that I'm missing, and how do we make sure this kind of grows in a positive way?
Absolutely, and we would be anxious to hear about it. Honestly,
right.
So let's keep in touch.
Okay.
If you'll touch base with me, and like I said, send us some information. And I think it would be nice, even if it's just me for a minute, to kind of hear what you have going on and keep us updated. I think that would be great.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm happy to hear.
And I wish you luck.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to hear your positive initial reaction. So, yeah, I'll get back in touch with you over the fall, and maybe soon with a bit of a kind of taster to give
Absolutely.
your team an idea.
No, I love that.
Great. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Thanks for putting these together.
Thanks for coming today. Yeah. Have
Great.
a good day.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
I apologize.
Monica, I lost you.
I know, I lost my internet right in the middle of that, and it was attached the whole time during the meeting, and it decided to disconnect. So I apologize.
You know what? This world of technology we live in. No, I was just going to say, you can get on our foundation distribution list.
Okay.
And we send out updates on our workshops, on any fundraising events that we have coming up, and then. And we also push out information for NREL and DOE. However, it's not as quick as you will get if you just get on one of their distribution lists directly. So I would encourage you to kind of get on everybody's distribution list. And NHA is one too. They always put out some really good information. That's hydro.org. And then NWHA also has a lot of good information, and they are nwhydro.org. And
Gotcha.
then do you have the foundation one?
I will find you.
If you go to it's hydrofoundation.org, right when you, in fact, I have your email, I can put you on the distribution list, but you can also sign up right on the website.
Perfect. Yeah, our previous board
but I'm glad
chair,
to finally meet you.
our previous board chair, Pat McCarty, he's retired from Tacoma Power, sent me an email with this workshop, and he just sent it to me last night. So I joined right away.
Good.
So yeah,
That's
thank
great.
you for allowing me to introduce myself.
Of course. I'm glad to, because it's hard. Just the technology that we have. I mean, it's great that we can all get it together, but then when you're only seeing bubbles, it's hard to know who you're talking to, you know? So it's nice to be able to have a face and know who's in your audience. So I'm glad you stuck around.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go visit.
We'll have to have a conversation. I think we should have a separate conversation so that we can kind of touch base on any synergies, you know, that we have going on. Because I know we've got a lot of work on STEM. We're working with NWHA on a communications committee and things. So I just think there's a lot that we can talk about just to make sure that we're all in the same conversation.
I like that. Thank you so much. And yeah, I agree. We should have a separate conversation. I don't want to hog all your time, but thank you again.
Yeah, no, you're good. It was nice to meet you. Thanks, Monica.
Likewise. Thank you.